on 531 VI.
It is 7:34. This is Pacific Mornings. Now, the Treaty Principles Bill was always controversial, but few expected it to blow up this badly. On Friday, the Justice Select Committee recommended scrapping it following over 300,000 submissions, 90% opposed, just 8% in support. Joining me to discuss this and more is Prime Minister Christopher Luxon. Good morning, welcome back.
Good morning, William. Good to be with you. Great to be with you.
Likewise. Hey, look, I'm going to ask the obvious. This was a monumental waste of time, wasn't it?
Well, look, I mean, it was an issue that evoked strong feelings on all sides of the debate. It was part of our coalition commitment to have an aeration of those views. It was something that was very important to the ACT Party. They wanted a full national referendum on it. The National Party didn't want anything to do with it, and for a number of reasons. And, we've actually came to a compromise. And so there has been an aeration of those views. As I said, we'd support it at the first reading. We won't support it at the second reading. That's why I'll come back into the Parliament tomorrow, and that will be the end of it.
Speaking of it, why aren't you attending the second reading tomorrow?
I've got quite a bit on tomorrow, so it's quite normal. I'm not in Wellington. I'm typically not in Wellington on Thursdays. In fact, most weeks I'm not. And the reason is that I've got a big economic speech to give. I've also got a meeting with iwi, which I have as well. But I will be available to media to talk to it as well. So just depends on where I'll be in Auckland or Wellington here. So yes, that's quite normal for me. So it's just purely a fact that the bills come back to the House on a Thursday. I'm not here on Thursdays. And frankly, I also have been very clear on my position. So right from day one about why we're doing it, but also what the National Party position is, what my view is on it. Happy to articulate that again. What I'm more important about is that this bill's come back out of Select Committee and it will be voted down, and we can wrap it up and move on to things that actually Kiwis are more interested in and more worried about, frankly. And as you've seen events this week around the global trade environment and what that means for our economy and what that means for people's incomes and jobs, that's actually what New Zealanders want me focused on. That's what I'm going to do.
Indeed. Well, bigger fish to fry. I don't blame you for not being there. Look, let's turn our attention very quickly to the One News Varian poll. Your approval ratings are a bit of a shocker compared to Chris Hipkins, although I do recognise you are ahead in the preferred Prime Minister stakes. How much longer have you got left in the job?
Well, the bottom line is this, William, which is that we got voted in as a government in October 2023. We've got inherited a hell of a mess from Chris Hipkins of the last Labour government. We're fixing that up. We're working our way through it. You're seeing that New Zealand and the economy is starting to turn the corner with inflation under control, interest rates coming down, and also with the economy starting to grow. And ultimately, New Zealanders elected me to get on with it and actually deliver for them. And if I do my job right in 2026, they'll have another chance to vote for us. And if they want us back in and they think they're going to be better off under a national-led government and our coalition government, then they'll vote for us again. So, there are different polls every single week. I mean, I think there's been three or four polls in the last 10 days. So I have to be honest with you, I don't think about polls. And the fact that, what it just says to me is New Zealanders want me to stay focused on what is important to them. There's nothing more important than growing our economy and getting money into people's back pockets.
Certainly. I'm not one for conspiracy theories, but it is the press gallery's favourite pastime to suggest or guess when a Prime Minister's time is up and he's going to be rolled. You can quash those theories?
Oh, absolutely. We've got an awesome team. We've got a government that's just very focused on the task, and no disrespect, but the Wellington Beltway media can do their machinations, but that often isn't the stuff that Kiwis are concerned about out beyond Wellington. And what I'm focused in as a person who's come out from outside politics 4 years ago to this job is that I'm here because I think New Zealand's got a great future. I think it's got great potential, and we haven't been realising it. And that's why I came to politics 4 years ago. So I'm always focused on what Kiwis care about, not frankly what the Wellington Beltway media thinks.
No, well, fair enough. I do like that. Look, I'm being a bit cheeky. I do like that about you, though. You're not a career politician. You've come from the outside, and so that's a good thing. Look, let's turn our attention to another good thing, perhaps. I'm a big fan of this defence spend. I think it's good. But is it an acknowledgement, perhaps, that we are living in an increasingly volatile world?
I think that's right, William. I think your assessment's the right one, which is that we've always thought by virtue of our distance, by virtue of our location in the world, that we've lived in what previously Prime Ministers have called a very benign environment, meaning not very many threats. But we have seen over the last few years, actually, with more geostrategic competition, we're actually seeing more competition and tension in our region. And, we've seen intercontinental ballistic missiles launched in through the Pacific, recently. We've seen a flotilla of ships come through the Tasman Sea for the first time with quite serious strike capability. So, there's a number of things going on in our region. And what's important is, irrespective of all of that, New Zealand has to have its own view, and we have an independent foreign policy. We act in our own national interests. And part of actually standing up for values that we articulate and we verbalise is that you've then got to follow it through with a commitment and carry your end of the deal and pull your end of, pull your weight. And so that's what we're doing here with this Defence Force. I think within the Pacific, it's been really well received, obviously, because when you think about natural disasters that happen, I can think of recently our support across the Pacific for earthquakes and landslides and Papua New Guinea. It's New Zealand Defence Force assets and Defence Force people that come in to actually help and assist the people of the Pacific, and also here at home in New Zealand. So, it's just about having capability to be able to act and protect our own national interests.
Let's turn our attention to tariffs. And the thing that gets me is that the Donald Trump administration is undoing decades of liberalisation in terms of the markets, right? I'm no fan of it. I'm no fan of this protectionism that he's obviously pursuing. With that in mind, what do you make of the tariffs?
Yeah, look, I'm concerned too, because just tariffs and trade wars is just not what the global economy needs. What it needs is certainty, so that actually people can make investments and they grow. And when they grow, they can create jobs, and that's what puts money into people's pockets. So, we are not a supporter of tariffs. And in fact, New Zealand has been one of the countries in the world that's advocated not to have tariffs for many, many years. And we've done well as a consequence of that, as have many of our trading partners. So we're going to continue to advocate very, very strongly for that position. But also, New Zealand is relatively well positioned. Obviously, we've taken the baseline tariff, which we have 10%, which we would still say is just not necessary and not helpful, because all that happens is that cost gets passed on to the US consumer. And the US consumer, all their goods and services just got more expensive, and that means they don't have as much money in their pocket to spend. That means the US economy will slow, and when the US economy slow, that means the global economy will slow, and that's what can impact New Zealand. So, it's a lot choppier in terms of our trading environment. We're going to advocate for no tariffs and no trade wars very strongly with our partners and our friends. But New Zealand exporters are well positioned. Our products are in huge demand, and I'm very, very focused on that challenge at the moment.
Just very quickly on Polyfest, I know you attended on the weekend. You said you would hit up our Pacific People's Minister. Did you actually talk to him?
Yeah, I did. And he was also hit up directly. The great thing about the Polyfest organisers is they're very clear about what they want, which is more support. And so I'm sure Shane, as our Minister of Pacific Peoples, he's actually up in the Pacific again on Thursday for a week with Winston Peters, visiting Tonga, Vanuatu, and also Hawaii. And so I'm sure he'll give that some due consideration. But it's also about creating the conditions, frankly, for Pacific people to be able to get ahead and do well for themselves. And so, we've also been supporting things like Pacific Financial Education, which has been actually helping people with their finances and getting them into houses. There's some housing projects that we've got up and running. But we've got to get the basics of this economy right so that people can actually have more money in their back pocket. And you're seeing inflation down, you're seeing interest rates come down, the economy starting to grow. That's what keeps people in jobs. That's what gives them higher paying jobs. And that what ultimately means is they've got more money in their back pocket at the end of the day after all their costs. And that's what the cost of living is, what we've got to keep working hard at.
Indeed. Before I let you go, what is the story, do you think, with Peter Dutton? Is he trying to be a Christopher Luxon 2.0? I was looking, I keep a close eye on what's going on over in Australia. They've got the same slogan as you guys. They're now pursuing, back to work for public servants. What do you make of what's going on over there?
Well, I think he actually backed down on that commitment, as I understand it, yesterday. Look, I've met him, I think, twice or three times. I said to him when they stole our slogan, which was "Let's get New Zealand back on track." It's now "Let's get Australia back on track." I'll charge you a licensing fee for it and send the invoice at the end of it. But look, the good thing about the New Zealand-Australia relationship in general, William, is that it doesn't really matter which political party is in on each side. That actually the politics go out the window really fast, and that's never, ever a topic of conversation. So, my position is I don't really comment on their internal elections and their process. Whoever they elect as their person or their leader, I'm confident I'll be able to work with either. And we've got good relationships. I've had a great relationship with Prime Minister Albanese. I know Peter Dutton well too, and I'm confident New Zealand and Australia's relationship continues to deepen as it has, frankly, the last 16 months. It's in a very good place.
I thoroughly enjoy these chats. It's always a pleasure to yarn with you, Prime Minister. You have a good rest of your day,
Likewise.
eh?
Yeah, you have a great week too. We'll see you soon. Take care, William.
Yeah. You're listening to Pacific Mornings.